First, you heard Democrats, including the mayor of Minneapolis, saying that the car never struck the officer and the lethal force was unjustified. Now, of course, there is plentiful video evidence to show that the officer was struck by the car, that this deranged lunatic woman was trying to ram him over with her vehicle and was using that vehicle as a weapon, which justifies domestic terrorism.
I don't believe the cop was justified in shooting her 3 times in the face.
The Trump administration is continuing its smear campaign against Renee Nicole Good, the Minnesota woman who was murdered by Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent. And even some conservative commentators aren't having it. That was Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt talking to Fox News this morning. And over the weekend, top administration officials made the rounds in the press to double down on their character assassination of Miss Good. And we'll show you some more of what the Trump administration had to say. We'll get into some of the critics like who you just saw there, Tim Dillon. But first, Cenk, I want to bring you in here. What do you make of this ongoing character assassination and smear campaign against Renee Good?
Yeah, it's a Rorschach test, but it's also a litmus test. Here's what I mean by that. Some in the country that love mass deportations look at that and go, oh my God, that poor officer was almost murdered by a terrorist. Oh, thank God he barely saved his life and shot her in the face 3 times. And others look at it and go, are you crazy? All he had to do was step aside. Actually, he did step aside, and then he shot her twice again in the face from the side. No, he's not a domestic terrorist, you lunatics, right? And no, his life was not in danger. So that's your Rorschach test. But the more interesting one, Jordan, is the litmus test. Which side are people gonna go on here? And the one I was most curious about is independent voters and independent podcasters. And that jury has started to come in. So you saw one piece of the jury with Tim Dillon. His comments were a little bit more nuanced than that. We've got more. Let's look at all the facts first, and then we'll come back and talk about which way our independents gonna go on this, because that will be critical to which way the country's gonna go.
Yep. Let's start with Kristi Noem, who tried to push the administration's narrative on CNN this weekend.
So if this agents were perfectly fine, if everything he did was accurate, does that mean that other ICE agents should look at what?
He wasn't perfectly fine. He was injured. He went to the hospital.
No, his actions were fine. I didn't say.
In fact, I think a lot of people and the guests and even you yourself called this situation something very different and untruthful about what it was as far as.
What did I say that was untruthful?
That this was not a correct definition of what was happening on the ground.
I said that your description, they were attempting to push out their vehicle and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle is not what we see on the videotape, and it's not.
It absolutely is the facts of what happened on the ground that day.
Never mind that the video showed she tried to wave them through, or that her last words were, "That's fine, dude, I'm not mad at you." They are demanding that you reject what you see on video and accept the ludicrous notion that Renee Good was a domestic terrorist. Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, was asked on Meet the Press about the administration's domestic terrorist label.
Is anyone who protests ICE a domestic terrorist in the eyes of the administration?
I can't say that. It's a case-by-case basis, but if you look up the definition of terrorism, is there violence? Is there threat of violence based on an ideology that wants to change the way the government does what we do? Look up the definition of terrorism.
But was Secretary Noem correct to label her a domestic terrorist, Mr. Homan?
Look, we don't know what, I don't know what Secretary Noem knows and what I know. I can tell you is what they did is illegal. And if you look up this definition of terrorism, it certainly could fall within that definition if you look at the definition of terrorism.
But you don't have evidence.
Pardon me?
You don't have evidence that she's a domestic terrorist.
I don't know what secretary has that I don't. I'm not going to judge what the secretary says, but if you look up the definition of terrorism, it certainly can fall within that.
So they've made their position clear, but are people buying it? Conservative comedian Tim Dillon rejected it on his show.
These are not well-trained law enforcement people in ICE right now. We're taking people that did backyard wrestling. I mean, the people that are in ICE right now are, this is your cousin who was in backyard wrestling. This is tough. This is not the cream of the crop. Do you know the guys that kidnapped Maduro, like Delta Force, Navy SEALs? This is not them. This is not the Delta Force, Navy SEAL people. This is people that this is people in their third grade report card the teacher wrote that has violent tendencies.
And Senator Mark Warner went on CNBC to highlight how the training period for immigration agents was slashed. And wait until you hear about the ludicrous rationale.
ICE used to take 5 to 6 months to get trained. They've now lowered the training period to 47 days. Why 47 days? Because Donald Trump's the 47th president. Tell me that's a rational approach.
I'm not obviously I'm not going to take that bait and say it's a rational approach, but
Joe, you can't pick your facts.
And that is embarrassingly true. According to The Atlantic, new deportation officers at ICE used to receive about 5 months of federal law enforcement training. Administration officials have cut that time roughly in half, partly by eliminating Spanish language courses. Academy training was shortened to 47 days, 3 officials told me. The number picked because Trump is the 47th president. DHS officials said the training will run 6 days a week for 8 weeks.
All right, it's time for New Year's resolutions. We all make them, but I'm not making any big flashy resolutions that are gonna crash and burn by February. My reset is much simpler. It's about giving myself a break in the kitchen. Not by eating less, don't be crazy. But let's be honest, thinking about what to eat, shopping for it, cooking it, it's a drain. And when you're drained from cooking, you can't focus on the work that matters, and that's the work right here. That's where Cook Unity comes in. It's been my way of cheating. Like I have a personal chef. I'm very fancy that way, please. But without the insane cost. Restaurant quality meals on my schedule. So I ordered a bunch of things that I loved. So we got the pepperoni naan pizza. I love pepperoni pizza, I love naan. You put it together, it's genius. Golden chicken schnitzel. It's schnitzel, but it's golden. Okay, this stuff is all so good. New Orleans shrimp and grits. They have sausage in there too, love it. And that's my point, guys. These aren't boring and repetitive meals. These are all-star chefs, Food Network alum, and James Beard winners. Handpicking seasonal ingredients and balancing bold flavors with nutrition. Every meal is a small batch masterpiece delivered fresh, never frozen. It makes hitting wellness goals effortless because a nutritious, incredible meal is ready in minutes. No shopping, no cooking, no cleanup. You can browse by chef, by cuisine, filter macros to the gram, not a thing I would do, but you could. And it's way less than takeout or even grocery store prices. Plus their packaging is part of a reusable, eco-friendly program. You can't ask for more. Taste comfort and craftsmanship in every bite from the award-winning chefs behind Cook Unity. Go to cookunity.com/TYT or enter code TYT before checkout to get 50% off your first order. That's 50% off your first order by using code TYT or going to cookunity.com/TYT.
But what about the general public? How do they feel about the administration's handling of this tragic killing? Over the weekend, there were over 1,000 protests nationwide under the banner of ICE Out for Good, but the administration shows no sign of slowing. Last week, over 2,000 more federal agents were sent to Minneapolis to conduct what ICE calls the largest immigration operation ever. Cenk.
Yeah, so the reason I say Tim Dillon's comments were a little bit more nuanced is because he also said like, don't block ICE, don't, he doesn't love the protests is the sense I got from that segment. And I'm halfway with him. I like the protests. Protests are American. Protesting the way that ICE is conducting this, let alone the mass deportations themselves, is perfectly good thing to do. I do agree, like just be super careful. Don't do anything physical. Don't do anything anywhere near physical, because all they're going to do is to discredit all the protests and all the legitimate points you want to make, let alone the fact that people are going to get hurt. And most especially the protesters, right? So, but overall, Dillon is going in the right direction again. So this time around, again opposing Trump. And so the idea that these podcasters who said, yeah, I guess Trump over Kamala Harris or some part of a Trump cult and they'll never break and they'll always agree with Trump, that idea is dead now, totally dead. They've broken with Trump dozens of times already. And here he is doing it again. But the thing that I like the most, and this a curious guy to quote on it, I'm not saying that I agree with anything else this guy says, but I also saw Dan Bilzerian, right, who is like a right-wing, tough guy kind of guy with problematic points of view, etc. We agree on Israel, but he takes other things way too far. But for a guy like him to say, yeah, it's not that manly to shoot a woman in the face 3 times. I was like, oh, that's a relief. Like there's now a kind of a surge back, Jordan, that I wasn't sure was gonna happen. And like I said, I'm a little relieved to see it partly happening with people going, yeah, I don't think that this is the win that people think it is. Like, because there's a lot of guys going, yeah, it's a tough thing. Yeah, way to be, you see an unarmed woman, you shoot her in the head 3 times. That's wait, is that the manly thing? I don't think that is the manly thing, right? So I'm definitely encouraged by that. And it seems like Trump is losing the crowd in a big way, and including in the polling on immigration, which he had it. On immigration, he had great polling, and now he has bad polling because, as always, he takes it way too far.
I hope in my heart that a majority of people can see that video for what it is. Some of the vocal minority on the right, ultimately, the fringe right, has an outsized voice relative to their share of people that have those same views. I try to always remind myself of that. Unfortunately, they also have outsized influence because the administration aligns themselves with that worldview. But what I really hope is that a majority of people in this country see this for what it is. It is a cold-blooded murder. Like you said earlier in this segment, he was on the side of the car. You can see the video that he was recording with his cell phone. First of all, what are you doing? Why are you recording with your cell phone? But he was, and he approaches her window at first. And she said, that's fine, dude, I'm not mad at you. And I see that, and then you try to tell me that that person is a terrorist, immediate non-starter. No, she's clearly not. She's trying to wave them through, and then it's like, oh, it's all good, don't worry about it. The quintessential Midwest nice. That it was one of the many things that makes this country great, and especially that region. He then goes to the other side of the car where her wife is, going back and forth with him. She's talking to him. She's calling him out. She's emasculating him ultimately. She said, go have a sandwich, big boy, mocking him. We'll be back later, showing she's not afraid. And it's in that moment, Cenk, that he switches his phone from his right hand to his left before he's even back in front of the car. To me, that interaction with her wife and him switching hands with his phone, just because his gun's on his right side, that to me shows he knew what he was going to do before he even did it. And then when he pulled his gun out, she starts to turn and get out of there. And that's when he kills her. I would hope that every American can see that. Most Americans, let's be real, there's gonna be some who refuse to accept reality out of blind partisanship. But let's hope that a majority of people see this for what it is. And then they see this administration attacking a dead woman, insulting her, labeling her a terrorist, maligning her, conducting a multi-day smear campaign on national television because she tried to get away from a masked stranger with a gun. It's disgusting. I don't know how we come back from this as a country if the acceptance of reality is not a majority viewpoint. So I hope in my heart that more people recognize this for what it is.
Yeah, so 2 great points by our members on TYT.com, and I love that you guys are part of the show. You could join it through TYT.com/join and get your comments read like this, because you guys are making great points. Asimo's Prophet asked a question: can Renee's family sue these people for defamation? The answer is yes. And it'll be a really interesting, complicated legal case because she was not a public figure before she was shot. She's a public figure after she's shot. So it'll probably be a lower standard. It'll be really interesting to see, but it might cost unfortunately, us a lot of money because then they're going to have to sue the government, and the government is the taxpayers. But that's why our politicians and our representatives should be a lot more careful, but they won't be. But engineer with a brilliant point that backs up what Tim Dillon is saying and what Jordan said about the competence. Engineer said the agent shot into the car while his fellow agent had his hands on the driver's window. I'm not sure that any legitimate training would not allow putting fellow officers in the line of fire. Absolutely right. And honestly, I hadn't thought of that. That's why I love it when you guys send in these great comments. TYT.com/join to become a member and help us do the show. Yeah, you're absolutely right. First of all, he's not supposed to have a cell phone because he's supposed to have his hands free in case he's in danger. That was already problematic. The switching of the hands that Jordan mentioned is against protocol because you shouldn't have the cell phone in your hand in the first place, let alone what it indicates about what he was about to do. And lastly, if you're shooting at through the car, which he was, and the first shot was from the front, your fellow ICE officer's right there, right next to her, holding onto the door. That is definitely not proper training, not even close. And then you see Kristi Noem on air going, what he did was perfect, it was totally fine. Oh, come on. That can't possibly be true. Even if you're on as right-wing as it possibly gets, why would you want to endanger a fellow officer like that? So brilliant point. Finally, for me, look, I always show another foot, right? So Tom Homan's definition of terrorist, if you look it up, he says it could be violence or perceived threats of violence. There goes everything, right? And and it includes a political philosophy. And it wants the government to change something that it's doing. Well, first of all, every protest has a political philosophy and wants the government to change what it's doing. That's why it's a protest, right? In fact, there's a protest on a date of, I think it was January 5th, 12th, no, 6th, January 6th, where they had a political philosophy. They wanted the government very much to change something that it was doing. And there wasn't just threats of violence, there was significant violence. Now, if you call January 6th guys domestic terrorists, what will be the right-wing reaction? How dare you, right? Okay, fine, no problem. I don't want to call them domestic terrorists either. I think that is a dangerous road to go on in either direction, okay? For either side to start calling fellow citizens terrorists, okay? But they were not domestic terrorists, and Renee Good going 2 miles per hour, swerving away from the officer, was a domestic terrorist? No, that means you're not being genuine at all. I'm referring to Tom Homan. You're just doing propaganda. So there's your answer.
Yeah, I mean, even I've seen a lot of people draw comparisons to how they reacted to Ashley Babbitt being shot in the Capitol. She tried to squeeze through the window to go in further, ignoring Capitol Police's orders. They see her as a martyr. They see everyone who was arrested on January 6th as a political victim. Political prisoners was the term that they used. And then they got pardons. And then you're saying that this woman who was trying to get out of there, clearly forensic analysis by New York Times and other shows, the wheels are going the other way. She's got plushies in the car, her dog's in the car. If you are a terrorist, you're not bringing your dog. You're not bringing your family lab. Like what? It is insulting to the intelligence of every American that they are trying to convince people of this. It's grotesque. Just admit the guy was wrong. It is so easy, but their unwillingness to do that shows the cruelty here is the point, and the precedent that it sets has me very concerned. As you've seen from reporting by people like Nick Turks at The Intercept, Ken Klippenstein, they are trying to import the label they are using in Venezuela of terrorists, the justification and use case of the terrorist label there domestically under, I think it was MPSM 7, I might get the acronym wrong, but the memo that Ken and Nick Turks have reported on extensively shows to people who are super read in on national security and domestic issues like that, they're trying to import that same label and use it here. This is an example. I was talking to Ken that day and he said, this is exactly what that is. And by defending this agent shows they want this to be the label they use going forward. If you get in the way of the regime, if you get in the way of this administration, you are a terrorist. And if you are killed on the spot, so be it.
That's why the use of the word terrorist is super duper dangerous. Once Israel started calling the Muslims around them terrorists, they had carte blanche to kill them all. And they have killed an enormous amount of them. And they've gotten us to do a global war on terror where we killed hundreds of thousands of people across the world. Once you call someone a terrorist, you can do anything you want to them. The government can. That is why we cannot have the left wing or the right wing or any wing in this country being called terrorists. No, we're citizens of this country. And you use that kind of language, it is super dangerous and it will have blowback consequences for all of us. Super last thing, guys, is a question to you guys, because I'm curious how it's gonna go. The polling so far is Trump has lost popularity on immigration, ICE has lost popularity, but we have not gotten the polling in after the shooting, so we don't know yet. So we're asking on TYT.com, how do you think independents view the actions of ICE? A, they are in favor of strong force and mass deportations. B, they are uncomfortable with ICE's extreme actions. So that's on TYT.com. We're very curious about your opinion. Go take the poll, we'll report back on it. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.